So this is a question on, hey Luke, how do you increase stress tolerance / manage stress? And I guess this is a good question, but it's also a very simple question. I have a very simple answer for you, unfortunately. Stress tolerance is increased by constantly having more stress and more battles in your life. That's really how you increase stress tolerance. It's just like asking me, how do you get better at bench pressing? How do you get better at squats? How do you get better at moving heavy objects? Well, the answer is that you move heavy objects, and then as heavy as you can move, and then you slowly increase the weight over and over and over again. And it's the exact same thing with building stress tolerance. It's the exact same thing with building discipline. It's the exact same thing with anything in life. It's the same thing as building any skill in the world. It's the same. Your body will adapt to its environment. It will adapt. It will either adapt or it will break. That's one of the two things, right? So if you put on too much weight, you might just break. You might just break and injure yourself. But if you put on enough weight to make it challenging, but not too much weight to where it breaks you, then you'll start to get better at handling that until that becomes a normal. And then you can increase the weight again, and et cetera, et cetera. So how to increase stress tolerance? That's really just about super caring about things, right? Because when you care, that means that it stresses you out, right? So those of you guys who care about not being as successful as you wish you were at this moment, those of you guys who are frustrated with yourselves for not succeeding as much as you would have liked to have succeeded by now, that is good. You're putting stress on yourself, and you're going to learn how to deal with that stress that you've put on yourself. You're going to learn how to manage and deal with it. Now, as for tricks of how to manage it, I'm trying to think about things I do. And one thing that I use that really helps me manage my stress often is I always remind myself that all you can do is work as hard as possible every single day. That's all you can do. All you can do is work as hard as humanly possible. Every single time that you catch yourself on TikTok, scrolling through TikTok, or in my case, every single time I catch myself scrolling on Twitter, even for half a second, then I just tell myself, okay, I have too much work, and I cannot allow myself the peace of just reading about crypto or whatever I like to do on Twitter, for example. So it's really about, the best way I manage stress is I make sure that I'm not wasting any of my time, right? That's the best way I do it. The best way I manage it is just by making sure I'm always working. It's just making sure that every single second I'm awake, I'm working on a solution to whatever is stressing me. Whatever the problem is, whatever trouble I have, I just make sure that I'm working as hard as possible on those. And that's kind of a big thing, because, right, once you've worked as hard as you humanly can, and you're honest with yourself, right? Once you've given it your best, there's nothing more you can do. Like, all you can do is give your best. Even if you're like, let's say you're going to die if you don't do this one thing. Well, all you can do is try your very best. And at the end, if you die, you die. So I find that to be a very relaxing thought, and it's something that I use often, and I remind myself often. The only thing I can do is work as hard as humanly possible, and I will get where I get when I get there. Obviously, working as hard as humanly possible is very hard. It's very stressful. But that's kind of what stops it from, let's say, the stress from breaking me, because I'll always have some amount of peace understanding that I'm working as hard as humanly possible. That level of peace. But also I have the stress, right? Because if you are not actually working as hard as humanly possible, you'll know that deep down, and then you'll be very stressed. So it's kind of it's a mental model I like to use, and that I found very helpful for myself. Work as hard as humanly possible, and as long as you look back on your day and you realize you didn't waste a single second, there's not a single time where you were doing something you shouldn't have done. You've done everything to the best of your ability. You're really working your ass off, and you're trying to make those days perfect and every second count. Then when you go to bed that day, I mean, what else could you have done? You couldn't have done anything else. So you can sleep quite happily, and then just try your best to work it on the next day. That's how I deal with stress. Try and breathe in deep, breathe out deep, and so hopefully that helps. But increasing stress tolerance is easy. That's just about putting yourself under stress, and then managing with stress. That's what I found really helps. And hopefully this is a good lecture and helps you guys out. Ciao.